Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Laymen Daily Show. How's everyone? Zelda Breath of the Wild. Zelda is all I've been doing for the last 3 or 4 days. That's all I've been doing. Like, eat, sleep, and then playing Zelda. That's all I'm doing. Like, I haven't played this much of a game all the time, 24/7 since Elden Ring. It's being review bombed, which is fun. There's other news. Plus, I wanted to do another, like at the, maybe after the review bomb section, I'll do a little impressions, all right? Don't know how long these impressions are going to go for, but after 35 hours now of playing this game, I want to talk about it. It's been, I think, an incredible experience, but not everyone's having a good time with this. That's the main point here. Some people are not having a great time here. Some people are annoyed about the graphics, about the overall offering, about the FPS, all that kind of stuff. But let's get to it, all right? All this and more after the drop. All right. How's everyone in the chat? How's everybody in the chat? I'm not a lizard says, meow. Well, meow to you, my friend. That's a per effort. God, that was terrible. I had to try it. I've turned off all the buttons now, okay? So if I go back to here, all the buttons are off. Okay, good. Brian says, weapon durability was a mistake. Well, we'll get to all that. Well, first and foremost, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has been getting review bombed big time. So as you see here, this is when it was at 33 ratings. Since then, all the Zelda fans have come to its aid and brought it back up with 2,216 ratings now. But I thought I'd show all the people that aren't loving this. All the way from, this is not a Zelda game at all, puzzles, a disappointing sequel in many ways, and I plan to justify my points. Can we really be bothered? There's probably a lot of text there. Genji says an overrated sequel. It's just Breath of the Wild with some minor additions. And why are breakable weapons still a thing in this game? Looks like you're not the only one, man. Brian, not the only one. Also, not a Zelda game anymore, but a sandbox game. Never in a million years would I imagine a Zelda game where I rotate objects and stick things together like Minecraft, and it's even worse controlling it with a controller. Fair enough, people are entitled to their opinion. But a lot of these, especially at the beginning, a lot of this was connected to the performance. The performance of this, let's be honest, isn't great. It's running at 15 FPS, especially in the Fire Temple. As you go on, you'll see in certain sections, it's just like really struggling to maintain 30. And it doesn't really maintain 30 for a lot of the time. But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. When it comes to a game like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and in my personal opinion, this is my personal opinion, bugs is one thing. Performance on a 7-year machine, connected to the fact that it's really one of the most amazing games on Switch, right? It needs to be in aggregate looked at collectively, and kind of it needs to slot into the review score, right? A lot of people are annoyed that this has gotten 10 out of 10. The fact of the matter is, 35 hours in, I honestly think this is the greatest game that I've played on Switch. I saw reviews prior to playing it saying it felt, Breath of the Wild felt like a first draft. Tears of the Kingdom felt like a more, like an amazingly completed product that is just like, how did they do this? And I actually agree with that. There are so many amazing things that they're doing here. To focus just on performance, I think is cutting it it's a bit mean. Now, not to say that performance doesn't matter. Redfall had big performance. Of course, it went from 60 to 30 FPS, but we're talking about the most powerful console ever. We're talking about also a console that definitely does tout itself as you're going to be playing something at a high quality FPS, graphical fidelity. It's really pushing the narrative, and the whole marketing campaign is around the fact that it's, it's going to be something of high graphical fidelity and FPS quality. Switch isn't like that. Switch isn't trying to do that. We're not excusing poor FPS, but what we are saying is when a game is so fundamentally there's so many triumphs in that game, and it's trying to do so many things. And the world that they've created, the mechanics, the creative vision of it, and how it's all executed so beautifully, in my opinion, it needs to, the FPS becomes a much smaller conversation. Much smaller conversation, right? Now, there's going to be people in the comment section that say, you know what, I fucking hate Zelda, I hate what they've done here. That's okay. Like, you're entitled to your opinion, even though it's wrong. No, but like, you're entitled to your opinion, right? If you don't like Zelda, if you don't like the direction they've gone with Zelda, that's all good. But with the FPS discussion especially, I can't see that to be a major talking point on a piece of hardware that is 7 years old and a game like, if we're talking about performance-wise, when you dive from the top of Hyrule in the sky, you dive all the way down, you go to the surface, there's no loading time. You can continue down into this like kind of, hole that takes you down underneath Hyrule. All of that will take you 30 or 40 seconds. There's not an ounce of loading time. Not an ounce of loading time. In terms of performance, this is still a miracle on the Switch. It's just simple as that. It is incredible to see what they've done with this in terms of being able to make it virtually no loading, apart from if you enter a shrine or maybe enter a cutscene. There's no loading in this thing. The entire world can continuously be explored all the time. And there's very little moments where you'll feel any loading whatsoever. So if we're going to talk about the FPS, we need to talk about the overall performance of Tears of the Kingdom. And I honestly think it is a bit of a development miracle for them to get it to this level in terms of no loading time, the sheer mass and scale of it, the 16 gigabyte. Man, this thing is 16 gigabytes. It's incredible. So when we talk about FPS, there's definitely another aspect here that people aren't talking about. And that is, of course, the fact that the entire thing is a 7-year-old machine, and it's pretty much giving you a size and scale with no loading, very much like Elden Ring, Abdul says, what? It isn't even 30 FPS stable. No, it's not. Look, sometimes it is, but a lot of the times it's not. A lot of the times it's not. That was the problem with this. Absolutely. It's not even review bombed at all. I see what you're saying, Seath. Before it was getting review bombed, and then people came to the rescue. The people came to the rescue, and they were like, you know what? No, we're not going to have this. So all the Zelda fans jumped in and made sure that it was saved. That it was saved. But look, there's a lot of disgruntled people here that don't want that don't want that new style of Zelda. They're yearning for the old style of Zelda. But you know what has been fun? All these things. I mean, you can build the most ridiculous things. Looks like a Trojan horse. And that's as far as it gets. But, like, also this one. Someone built a mech. Ooh. That's probably going to get demonetized. Look at this. How incredible is that? They built an entire mech. I mean, the stuff you can do in this game is incredible. I think something else is still playing. I was wondering why that was making sounds and I wasn't actually... You can build a full mech in this goddamn game. The amount of creativity in this game is absolutely nuts. I've only scratched the surface in terms of how much like creative stuff you can do actually. Look, Twitter is full of people trying to do all sorts of stuff on here. I mean, is this going to be a sandbox without someone building a penis? Really? Oh well, that's a bit too I have to do it full screen, otherwise you can't see it. Oh, that's great. Let's watch it one more time. Why not? Let's get demonetized. Let's do it. Oh, mercy. Oh, that's just the same one. Very good. And these ones too.
This is for all those shitty core puzzles.
There's just, yeah, the amount of stuff that you can just destroy, burn, build. Have you guys been playing Tears of the Kingdom? I certainly have been playing a hell of a lot of Tears of the Kingdom. Lord says, nobody cares. Graphics still shit. It's definitely a concern with a 7-year-old machine. But Nintendo's never really cared overly, I think, about graphical fidelity, right? It's always been about the games and the experience. Lord says, some shitty Minecraft clone now. I don't know about that, my friend. I don't know about that. But look, just closing statements in terms of the whole review bomb thing. I've never been a big fan of review bombing. Well, it depends, right? If it's predatory monetization or gambling strategies within games and it's targeting people in a very evil way, review bombing can be a really good way of saying, "Hey, this is evil shit." You know, you really, you know, the product that you've put out, it's ultimately predatory, it's evil, it's not good for the industry, all that kind of stuff. I think review bombing is really good. Well, not really good, but it has its place. That's what I'm trying to say. It has its place to get consumers' voices heard. But with a game that, you know, like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, I think that's a good example of, if you don't like the game, fine, you don't need to give it a 0. If it is running at 15 FPS sometimes, and then other times it's running at 30 FPS, there's definitely some FPS issues there. Don't know if it deserves a 0 though. You know, it's not trying to destroy the industry with evil monetization strategies. It's just trying to, I think it's trying to make one of the greater games that we've seen on Switch, and they're struggling with the FPS, you know? Abdul says, guys, watch out for spoilers. That is a good point. So guys, now what I want to do is actually talk a bit about my experience. Now I will do this is going to be, there's not going to be a huge amount of spoilers in this, but I'm going to be talking about the game, right? So before I start, I thought I'd just let you know I'm going to be talking about the game, my 35 hours in, what I've been experiencing, what I think about it, all that kind of jazz. So before I start, if you're worried about spoilers, maybe look away, but really I don't think there's going to be too many spoilers here, but you know. So, I'm 35 hours in. 3 out of the 4 dungeons done. I've explored all the map in terms of all the sky towers. I've found them. Done dozens of shrines. I've just done this game, and that's all I've done all the time. Like, literally, that's all I've done all weekend. And I have to say, I am really surprised by how much I've enjoyed this. Now, I knew it was going to be a good Zelda game, but I really think, from 35 hours in, that regardless of the FPS issues, right? Yes, there's FPS issues. This is one of the greatest games on Switch that we've ever seen. I think creatively, how ambitious this thing is, how big the world is, what they're trying to do here in terms of give you a sandbox to let you do whatever you want, but at the same time, give you a cohesive experience and story that you can kind of follow at your own pace. To go on from what Breath of the Wild was, and to deliver something that's far bigger, far better in the context of what Breath of the Wild was, I think it's a huge achievement. I really do. And 35 hours in, I probably got another 15 hours before I finish maybe the main quest, and then there's like, what, 80 hours of just like side shit. Understanding what's so ambitious about this. Respectfully, that's all good. I was going to get to the points here, but okay, so I think that if I was to sum this up into why I think this is so ambitious, is because they've already created, that they took a game that was already brilliant and a masterpiece, and they 10x'd it. They 10x'd it in every conceivable way. From how big the world is, the story, how big the map is, where you can go, what you can do in that world, creatively, what you can experience and how you can put things together, from building things, from just the actual world itself is so much now more at your creative disposal. And to couple that with just the sheer offering of side quests, main story, it's just, the list goes on in terms of how much you can experience here in your own way. And this is one of those very clear examples of it gives you... It's a very clear example of a sandbox that allows you to do pretty much everything and anything you want, and having the trust and the confidence in the consumer to know that they're still going to follow the path of getting from start to finish, if you want to finish the game. I think when someone's creating a game, when you give so many tools, when you give people so many ways to play the game, surely the developers must have a bit of anxiety about, hey, is this just going to be lost in is this just going to be too much choice? Is this going to be just too much that you can kind of experience in your own way, that, the way that we would like to curate this is going to be lost on the way? I think Tears of the Kingdom is this perfect balance of you can do whatever you want, but the incentives to keep you moving forward is just so rewarding that it really works in its favor. The game pretty much says to you, do whatever you want, but if you want to do what we want you to do, we're going to reward you, man. We're going to give you some great shit. It's going to be a great time along the way. I guess I'll start with the story. Well, I'm already started, but the story itself, it's never so. If you're playing Tears of the Kingdom, don't play it because you really fundamentally are so invested in this kind of big, deep narrative story. It's Breath of the Wild wasn't like that either. It's kind of like, Mario 64, I baked you a cake, come find the cake. Kind of like that, right? It's always been like, Zelda's missing, oh shit, let's go find her. And then you just kind of embark on your own story. And there's going to be moments within that whole playtime that, that story's going to be enriched. But in terms of story, it's always been not bare bones, but definitely not giving you something that makes you feel like you played this for the story. You didn't play this for the story. You played this for the world, the creative freedom, the creative, how ambitious this is in terms of allowing you to do 1,000,001 things in the world of Hyrule, But in terms of map density, my God, dude, I was not expecting this to be so massive. It is huge. And the thing is, right, the main area, the land of Hyrule, is massive. The sky area is more sporadic. It's not like an entire area. When I first saw these trailers, I thought that I was going to be experiencing purely a Zelda game set more in the clouds. I was like, okay, Tears of the Kingdom. This is very much about cloud game. This is going to be like a cloud sky game. It's not like that. It's more like you'll probably, from the 35 hours I've played at least, you'll probably spend 10 to 15% in the clouds. There is an entire dungeon that is kind of set high in the clouds. But the rest of it, it's pretty few and far between where you'll need to go up there, So when you are playing this, expect that you are going to be very much in the Kingdom of Hyrule on the ground, right? Don't expect that this is going to be some game in the clouds. It's not really like that, right? And I made the mistake from watching the trailers thinking that this was going to be very much emphasizing a Hyrule world much more higher up, which is not. But the bottom section, oh my God, there's these areas in the map that you can kind of drop down and you can experience underneath Hyrule. I cannot believe how massive this area is. And if you've watched any reviews, they're talking about this, right? This isn't like a major spoiler. It's just a part of the map. It's underneath, and the entirety of Hyrule can be explored underneath. I cannot state, it's just massive. That's what I'm trying to say. Every time I go under there, and I've only spent maybe 3 hours under there, 4 hours, and you're blown away by how much there is to explore on this map. The side quests, the places to go, the scenery, it feels like Blight Town the entire time you're down underneath, by the way. But just the overall spectacle of this map. It feels like Elden Ring. It feels bigger than Elden Ring almost. It legitimately feels bigger than Elden Ring, And the map density is another thing, right? Tears of the Kingdom is very different from Breath of the Wild in the way that Breath of the Wild definitely felt like there was heaps of open space where you didn't have to do much. You could just walk for a long time. Tears of the Kingdom has more to do, but the sheer size of it and the underneath area, you'll definitely experience moments where you're just walking and there's not much to do, but there's much more populated in this map. There's a lot more time that they've spent to actually include a lot of more enemies, a lot more bosses, a lot more just encampments, a lot more caves, shrines to look at. Not necessarily shrines, actually, but more the fact that there's just more things to do, more things to explore, more reasons to explore, and more rewards when you are exploring in caves and all that kind of stuff, right? Every time I'm walking forward to anywhere, right, I'm always looking left and right, and maybe a minute in or 30 seconds in, I'm seeing something that's kind of taking my interest, you know? With Breath of the Wild, it wasn't really like that for me. It was a lot of open space where it was very much like, hey, let's just let you soak this in. Let's just take this moment of quiet. And that's not to say that you're not going to still experience that moment of quiet in Tears of the Kingdom. You have a lot more choice to not have as much quiet. I think that's the best way to say it. You know, I think with Breath of the Wild, you didn't have a lot of choice. If you wanted to be really engaged and stimulated, it wasn't always there. With Tears of the Kingdom, there's a lot more to do. Absolutely. Sky Towers, I love that the fact that Sky Towers now don't need to be climbed. Some of them do. There is a few puzzles, of course, to open Sky Towers. As you guys know from Breath of the Wild, Sky Towers are very much like, hey, you want to explore this map, you got to come here and, like, you know, and get this Sky Tower working. I love what they've done here. Because I can tell you now, it got pretty tedious having to climb towers all the time. I really didn't want to have to do that all again. So the way that they've done this, it's good because it actually includes the way that you can get high into the sky again, you know? So it's still trying to connect the sky with the Sky Towers, right? Sky Towers. But what I mean is it was a really great mechanic for the game to try and connect you to the sky if you wanted to get there high, if you wanted to get high again, or if you wanted to try and actually kind of traverse the area of Hyrule quite quickly. You can use those towers and you can kind of glide quite far away. So in that regard, I'm really loving what they've done with Sky Towers, because you do spend a lot of the game trying to find the next Sky Tower to try and open up this new area, this new map, especially in the starting 20 or 25 hours. That's very much part of what you're trying to do. So I think that's actually a really good addition, especially to a game where we have climbed enough goddamn towers. We didn't want to have to do it again. Now, durability, man. Now, anyone that's been playing this has probably realized that durability isn't as much of an issue as it was. Now, it's still an issue. Don't get me wrong. It's still an issue. But it's a bit more of a... They've kind of fixed it now. See, durability used to be very much like you pick up a weapon, you swing it for a while, then it breaks. But the fact that you can fuse things to weapons now, I think in itself is very creative, right? There's so many things you can do. There's so many ways in which that you can fight. You can put flamethrowers on the end of your sword, or you can make a sword into like an axe. You can make all sorts of things in terms of like a stone on the end of it. That kind of fixes, in some ways, the durability problem. Some ways. Because I would put a rock on the end of my sword or whatever. And I'm telling you now, it would last like 5 times longer, or 3 or 5 times longer. So the durability thing is still a thing in this game. And that was the major issue that a lot of people had in this game, was durability. Durability was absolutely something that people really didn't love in this game. But I think that what they've put into this game with fusing items, especially like pieces of metal, like a shield, or you can put rocks or whatever, right? Fusing weapons together creates a more durable weapon. I've definitely experienced that. Absolutely. So for one, I'm not a huge fan of the durability. I don't think anyone is a fan of durability. I think durability is a pain in the ass. I get a weapon and then like I swing it 10 times and it's broken. It's like, oh fuck, man, that was annoying. You know, and it happens with bows too and all that kind of stuff. Like durability is not something that I think this game needs. But I think what they've done with the fusing mechanic is try to address the fact that some people were disgruntled by it. And they thought, let's couple this up with a creativity aspect to it and we can make it more enjoyable. And you know what? It actually is a bit more enjoyable now. You know? Dungeons. So, I've done 3 out of the 4 dungeons now. I haven't done all of them, right? But I will say, in terms of impressions, the Divine Beasts were another thing that people didn't love. People didn't love the Divine Beast because they felt like one of the basic formulas of Zelda is very much the dungeon experience. It's kind of very it's very meditative, you know, like you're in it for like an hour or 2, or if not longer. There's puzzles, there's find keys, there's each room, and by the end of it, you feel like you've done a lot of puzzles. And then, of course, you fight the end boss and whatever. The biggest problem I think a lot of people felt from Breath of the Wild was they diminished what the dungeons used to be. It was a step back for them. It was a smaller experience. It was a more condensed, geographically condensed experience. And I don't think people, if most people look back, I don't think they think Breath of the Wild's Divine Beast dungeons, not the Divine Beast idea, but the Divine Beast dungeons was the greatest part of Breath of the Wild. I think in some ways they've tried to remedy that. The dungeons in certain areas of this game are larger. They're more thematic. You can expect more time there, more areas that you'll have to like do a lot of puzzles, kind of like Ocarina of Time almost, especially with the Fire Temple. You know, the Fire Temple definitely felt like OG Zelda. And then there's other areas where you feel like, which I won't spoil, but there's definitely an area where you kind of have to, there's a huge pilgrimage. You're kind of trying to get to the temple. And that takes a good half an hour in itself. You can kind of see the temple, but the journey itself, before you get to the temple, before you see the thing saying you've arrived at this temple, it's kind of part of the temple, if that makes sense. The pilgrimage there, the journey there, the puzzles there, or like the traversal trying to get there is almost a puzzle in itself. That is part of the dungeon, in my opinion. And I think that was one of my favorite experiences of this game. You know, so I think the dungeons themselves feel a bit more fleshed out. They're a bit more realized. There's a bit more of an experience there. Geographically, they seem to be, or at least a couple of them, have been bigger. Definitely multi-floor, like some of them like 7 levels, where the Divine Beasts were a lot smaller than that. So when you are going to be playing this game, expect it to have a bit more emphasis on the dungeons, but not as much as OG Zelda. Don't expect it there, but it's kind of a nice middle ground. I think they've definitely heard that people wanted to see more fleshed out and more realized and more time-consuming dungeons, and they've definitely done that here. You know? Now, I'm actually a big fan of these new abilities. I've really loved these abilities that I've been playing with, right? So who's in the chat that has actually been playing this game? Abdul says, just 4 dungeons? No, I think there's a few dungeons. There's a few secret dungeons or whatever. Like, there's other things you can do, but there's 4 major dungeons that you need to do. Satnav says, thumbs up to the stream, you degenerates. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate you. Good to see you here. Yeah, who's been playing Tears of the Kingdom? I want to know. I think that these new abilities. My next point is the abilities, really. Man, they're kind of fundamental to what this game is. The way that they let you build. If you took these abilities away and you just gave Tears of the Kingdom, it'd be a fundamentally different game. From puzzles to the way that you traverse, the way you get around, and the way you try and interact and discover the world. These 4 abilities or whatever you have, 4 abilities. They allow you to fuse weapons. They allow you to go through buildings. They allow you to stop time, and they allow you to pick up things and build vehicles and all sorts of contraptions. I really love what they've done here. I'm a huge fan of these 4 new abilities, because before with Breath of the Wild, it allowed you to interact with the world and change the world slightly, and there'd be certain time mechanics and stuff like that. With Breath of the Wild, there's definitely things that would make you feel like you're interacting with the world, right? But not like you can affect the world like Tears of the Kingdom. Like, you can build shit and then drive around and things. You can like look at a building and then just boom, straight up and go all the way through to the very top. And I don't know, the abilities in this game fundamentally feel like you are more empowered to do things creatively in this world and affect this world. You know, like you get some glider, you put these 2 fans on the back of it, and you start gliding around all through Hyrule. Like you can span like 100 kilometers on this thing if you have enough battery. You know, like these types of things, or the rocket, for instance. You know, these types of things just felt like it was a level up in what you could do in Tears of the Kingdom. Absolutely. Now, I don't want to go too long with the impressions, right? I'm loving talking about this, but the last thing I think I'll talk about before I wrap up is the shrines. Now, the shrines, like, there's a lot of shrines, okay? There's a hell of a lot of friggin' shrines. But I will say that it's kind of the same thing. Expect the same thing with the shrines, but it's not always so... It's okay. It's very much still that you're trying to do puzzles. But the abilities in this allow it to be so much more diverse. So much more diverse when you're playing this game. Like when I'm playing this game, every time a shrine, it could be a battle sequence, or it could be I need to build a car. I need to run things over. Or I need to build something that allows me to scoop up balls, and that means that I have to build it a certain way that it picks up certain things that need to kind of flow. Not really explain that right, but there's so many things. That's what I'm trying to say. The shrines themselves do feel like they've done a level up here, because every single time I walked in there, I just felt like I was more stimulated compared to the previous Breath of the Wild, because Breath of the Wild before was kind of held down by a certain amount of flexibility they were trying to give you with those abilities. Where in Tears of the Kingdom, you know, the training wheels are off. There's so many more things you can actually do in Tears of the Kingdom creatively. And that kind of course, bleeds into what you can do with those shrines. So I've definitely loved the shrines. I've definitely loved this game in general. Like, again, I don't want to go on too much, but like, I've just loved this game. I've loved what I've experienced. The FPS has been an issue, right? The FPS absolutely has been an issue. There's a lot of times where I'm in any sort of area, especially with like a lot of embers around, like the fire temple or whatever. And I'm sitting there going, holy shit, this thing is barely holding at 15 frames. Like, it's barely holding. But as I said before, with so much offering, there is so much here in this game. There are so many things that they're trying here. Creatively, geographically, like just how massive this world is, from the story, from just, it's a 10x from Breath of the Wild in so many ways. Not to, you know, I'm not here to excuse FPS. I'm just here, as I said before at the start, I'm here to slot it into the discussion and the overarching triumph of what this game is. I think it's like a freaking 1% thing. If it dips a few times FPS wise, I don't really mind, because the experience and the world and like just this offering is massive. It is massive. And as I said before, when you are diving from the top of the sky all the way down to the land, all the way down through underneath Hyrule, I mean, there's no loading times. It's a miracle still for it to work on this thing. So to just focus on FPS, I don't think that's fair. The last thing I will say is, do I think that this is a sequel? Absolutely it is. You know, with Ocarina of Time, it was very different to Majora's Mask, where it was the same assets, it was the same vibe, and aesthetically it looked the same. But like, they were trying something fundamentally different with the time kind of mechanic, and just, you know, it was a different experience. With this is pretty much very much building on what they've done, and thematically it's the same, and it's definitely trying to give you just more Breath of the Wild, but just 10x'd. I know I keep saying 10x, but you know, it really is. More world, more ways to explore, more different abilities, more ways to create. It's definitely a continuation. It's definitely a sequel. And I think this has just been a fantastic sequel from what I've seen. A fantastic sequel from what I've seen. But anyway, that is my impressions, guys. I think it's definitely... Okay, if it's not worthy of 10 out of 10, if people are annoyed that it's a 10 out of 10, it's definitely worth a 9.99. Now, it's definitely worth, you know, a fantastic score. And it is going to be remembered, I think, as one of the Switch's greatest games, if not the greatest game that ever came out on Switch. Absolutely. Let's open up to the chat now. All I've been doing is talking for about 35 minutes. Barely speaking to you guys. God, aren't I rude? I'm so rude. All right. So what else is happening in the world of gaming? I feel bad though. If you guys want to ask me any questions, I'm open to answering. Ice I've mostly only experienced slowdown during building. Slowdown? No, I'm not sure what you mean. Slowdown. Channel name says a strong 7.5 out of 10 so far. 30 something hours. Okay, cool. Yeah, me too. Roughly, yeah. Wish the world had more worthwhile things than just shrines and Koroks again. I think the caves can be interesting. There's definitely a lot of things to mine out of the caves. And I feel like the caves themselves, I don't know, like for me, when I look at the caves, like I'm going in there for one thing, and that's just a mine thing so I have more rupees. Like that's all I really care about, right? But then there's some enemies in there and there's areas to kind of continuously hit the rocks away to continue to go further down. There's also some shrines hidden in those caves. So it's definitely some things that I've seen in there. Jeremy, we reused the whole map, kept in all the bad thing, and didn't improve flawed systems. Nearly improved stories. 10 out of 10. Don't blacklist us, Nintendo. I don't agree with that, Jeremy. But you know what? If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. But I definitely feel like they've tried to improve the durability, and they've tried to improve the dungeons. Absolutely. The durability system with the fuse system is definitely something that allows you to keep a weapon for far longer. You know? And not to mention the dungeons themselves, I mean, they're more interesting. They're more fleshed out. You know, there's definitely things that they've tried. Dan says 10 out of 10 just for that dude that needs help holding up the signs. Yes! I remember that. That was good. I remember that. Yeah. Was that on a peak? If I remember, I'm like climbing a mountain when I saw him. Zelda Skyward Sword, incredible game that nobody played. I played a little bit of it. You know what? I didn't fully get into that. Got that on my Switch. Good to see you again. Durability needs to die. I agree. I'm not a fan of durability. It's a 1 out of 10 for me, durability. Not a fan. I'm on the original Switch and the FPS hasn't been too bad overall in the bathroom at work. Yeah, well, I mean, like, I'm seeing FPS dips. It's not game breaking for me. It definitely hasn't been game breaking. There's certain sections where, as I said, like embers are constantly flying over the screen, or I'm definitely seeing some issues. But all in all, it's been okay. It's been okay. What else? Calvin, I wish when durability breaks, it would pull out the next weapon. Absolutely, Calvin. That is a very good point. The amount of times I start swinging and then Link's like, You know, it's like, fuck, man, give me another weapon. So stupid. I completely agree with that. TLOU, game looks like a snooze fest. You're wrong, TLOU. We love you, but you're wrong. Guys, definitely check it out if you are a 1% Zelda fan. Like, even if you don't mind Zelda, check it out. I think you have a good time. But don't expect OG Zelda. If you haven't played Zelda since Ocarina of Time, since Ocarina of Time, then expect something fundamentally different. Because it is. But any good game... I mean, this is the... Okay, last thing I'll say before I move on. Can you think of any game that is so away from how it was before and it's still smashing out of 10s? Like, Mario is still kind of doing what it... Like, it's still fundamentally doing what it did. And that's okay. That still gets 10s across the board for Odyssey and stuff. You know, Mario knew what it was, and it kind of stuck to that. Where Zelda, over the last 30 years, has definitely been very adventurous in how much they want to try and mix things up. Try new things, keep it relevant in the way that it can. Well, not even relevant, but just try and keep it on the edge of what Zelda can be. You know what I mean? It's very much trying to constantly push what a Zelda game can be. And I love that about Zelda. I love that about God of War. Okay, boom. In the bathroom at work, that's a good point. 2 of them, Baron also God of War. Absolutely. I agree. But I'm talking more like, I mean, God of War narrative-wise, like, definitely fundamentally changed what it was trying to be. Absolutely. But it didn't become like a sandbox war. You know, like, I'm talking like mechanically. Mechanically, Zelda definitely did something that's, you know, different. Different. Where God of War absolutely narrative-wise, like, completely changed what it was doing. Huge creative courage for them to do that. And I'm not taking that away from them. I'm talking more mechanically, you know? Yeah. Speaking of Nintendo, Nintendo has no plans to cut the price of its Switch console until April 2024 at the earliest. That's interesting. Because they also recently did an earnings call where they were talking about there's not going to be any sort of Nintendo Switch 2, Super Switch or whatever. That's not on the horizon at least until April or after that of 2024. Does that tell us that we may be seeing something after April 2024? I hope we do. Because it's been like 400 years now we've been playing the Switch. Okay, it feels like a calculator. But it sounds like maybe April 2024 or after that, we're going to start seeing some hype about a new console. That would be definitely very cool. And I'm very excited for the new Switch, right? Whatever it's going to be. Look, the thing is, right, as I said before, you don't buy the Switch for graphics. You buy it for the games and the overall experience that Nintendo offers. But they're not competing with this latest generation. That's the problem. Not in the way of graphics, in the way that they can't offer a lot of third parties going forward. This latest generation, a lot of third parties just simply cannot run on the Switch. They just simply cannot do it. So Switch can't compete in the way that people want to play Nintendo games, but they also want to play whatever, right? The next Doom. God, they got Doom running on this Switch. I don't know how they did it, but they did. They got Hogwarts coming. But you know what I mean, right? Like there's games that just are going to start more and more slipping away from being able to be put on the Switch. It's just not going to be possible, you know? Speaking of that, we're going to see Grand Theft Auto 6 on there? Probably not. Maybe. Who knows? But they did say that Rockstar Games has reportedly hired a team of 20 engineers that just work exclusively on GTA 6 water physics, introducing surfing for the first time. That's cool, man. And you know what? That's actually so true. Why haven't we seen surfing? We have not seen surfing in GTA, and I'd love to see that. Maybe you can just spend the entire time surfing. I mean, why buy a surfing game when you can just play Grand Theft Auto 6? It may be really good mechanics. It may be really good physics. Who knows? Calvin says, the real question is, can they fix Joy-Con drift with the new Switch? Well, man, I hope so. But they are giving pretty much like free repairs to anybody that asks now. So they've, I mean, not to say that you want to be, you know, without your Switch for like 4 weeks while they fix it. But hopefully not. I mean, sorry, hopefully they do fix it. Hopefully they do fix it. Now, I thought this was a feel-good story. Tears of the Kingdom launch is even being celebrated by PlayStation and Xbox. Xbox says it's good to be back in Hyrule. Congrats Nintendo America on Tears of the Kingdom. PlayStation, have fun up there, Hylians. I don't know. Did PlayStation congratulate Xbox for Redfall? I'm trying to think. Can you guys remember that? I can't remember that. There should be more thanking. Imagine if PlayStation was like, yeah, congrats on Redfall. I'd love to see that. That'd be a headline in itself. You know? Yeah, good luck with the whole Redfall thing, lol. Ooh, ouch. Ouch from Sony. Steam Deck, Abdul. Steam Deck. Okay. Okay. With the Steam Deck in terms of third-party games, absolutely, Abdul. What I mean is like, people want to be able to play third-party console games as well as Nintendo games, right? And if you're buying into the Nintendo ecosystem, you're primarily buying it for Nintendo games. But you are, of course, also buying it so you can play the odd third party. That's important too. That's important too. Man, how are people doing this? 94 minutes to finish this game. 94 minutes. A speedrunner has already managed to complete Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom in 94 minutes. In 94 minutes, I think I was still trying to figure out how to swing my sword. No, but like seriously, I mean, I was clearly in the tutorial area, the Great Sky Island or whatever it's called. Man, I want to see what this is right now. We don't have time, obviously, today, but if there is a video I want to try and find out, I want to try and figure out what the bug that he found or something to try and make him do that. Because, man, that is some crazy shit. That is some crazy shit. Very important gaming news. Hard drives predicted to be history by 2028. Who uses a hard drive now? Do any of you use a hard drive? Like, do any of you use a hard drive? And if you do, I'm not shaming you. I kind of am, though. Cloud? No, I know that I know the hard drives are still very useful, but I can't remember the last time I needed to use a hard drive. Maybe when I went away to Europe or something, when we were editing over there. That's actually probably when I used a hard drive. There's uses, and there's probably going to be uses after 2028, but they're definitely on the decline. The moment we saw cloud storage and all that kind of business, surely people didn't feel the need to have as much hard drives as we used to. Do you remember back in the day when you'd have like that 1 terabyte hard drive on your desk or something, and it cost you like a couple of $100? I'm like, whoa, terabyte or like 500 gigabytes, man, that's so much. That means nothing now. You can download 4 Call of Duties and you've got a terabyte done. See you later. Crazy. Shane says Zelda is the only thing Nintendo do that looks interesting to me. But they do a few things, my friend. They do a few things. Super Smash, Metroid, little guy with a red cap. Few things. No, but I know what you mean. Like, to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of like I don't know. I don't get super excited for new Mario games. Like Mario Sunshine, I loved. Mario 64, of course, you got to play it. It's like one of the monoliths of gaming. But like I wasn't overly when I played Odyssey, I don't know. I don't feel like I want to play hours and hours of that. So I kind of get what you mean. There's certain things that I've lost interest in over the years. Huge issue, guys. EA has apparently used the same spinny thing from Darth Maul from Star Wars Battlefront 2. This is apparently a controversy. I don't know. Oh, you can't really see it that way. But they're doing the same thing. Okay, this is the dumbest. If this is a controversy, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. They're made by the same studios, like in terms of EA. Like, as if they're going to make a brand new one. And how many different spinny things can you have? This is like peak spinny thing. Do you know what I mean? When I saw this doing the rounds, I was like, are people actually annoyed about this? Oh my God. It looks pretty cool though. But it naturally makes sense, right? Of course you're going to reuse assets when you can in the world of Star Wars. It's not being lazy. It's just like if you've already perfected it or if you've already got something that looks really cool, why would you try and do something different when you're already really happy with the result? Here's the Kingdom Breath of the Wild. Perfect example. Same thing, really. Why would you change the assets? Why would you change the world? It's pretty good. We'll just add a bit to it. Sell it for $70. 0 out of 10. 0 out of 10, folks. Her says, I'm nervous about not owning things. I know what you're saying, but I feel like the cloud, I don't know, I feel happy with the cloud. Look, if there's a cloud attack and they're like, hey, we're stealing all your data, I mean, that's not good. I understand a hard drive is pretty good that way. Like Bitcoin's pretty good that way. Hard wallet, stuff like that. Daz says, spinny thing. Spinny thing, you know what I'm trying to say. Spin attack. You know what I mean. Daz says, I think Star Wars fans are weird. Well, I'm a Star Wars fan and I'm very weird. But this was nonsense. For this to be anything, like, who gives a shit, right? Speaking of who gives a shit, most people are kind of over this now, but it's still a thing and it's happening. Now, Microsoft and Activision are prohibited from acquiring interest in each other by the CMA documents revealed today's show. So what they're saying here is, without written consent from the CMA, they cannot have any interest in each other, like shares or kind of options, stuff like that. Any way that they can influence each other's companies or have any sort of ownership or any sort of say in each other's companies, right? So the CMA's really doubling down here. They're not stepping back. They're like, you know what? We're also going to allow you to do nothing that involves ownership in any way, shape, or form. But as I said in a previous episode, they've got some David. What was the Queen's ex-lawyer that's now working with Xbox? Something Panic, Dave Panic, I think it's Lord Dave Panic or something. He was definitely a lord, and his last name was Panic. Let me tell you, all right. As I've already made this joke, I'd be panicking if a lawyer called Mr. Panic was there to take me away. All right, I'd be panicking big time. But this is going to be going on for several months, so expect small bits and pieces along the way, letting you know what's happening with the CMA. Oh, we've already done that one. This was really cute. Cute's the word? Cute.
Who the hell's
When Caillou Kwan met Biden. You guys hear that?
Okay, I gotta ask for one thing. You may not know.
He wants to do a selfie with Biden.
This could be the selfie of all selfie. You ready? Yes.
Oh dear. Isn't that nice? Do you guys remember when Caillou Kwan won his supporting actor? Man, that was such a beautiful speech. It was so good to see. I mean, that's like 30 years of aspirations and dreams all wrapped up into that moment. And he just exploded. He was so happy. You know? That was such a good video to watch. Everyone's watched that one, right? The Oscars of him accepting his award. Good times. I wanted to finish with like a nice story today. Speaking of nice stories, Server Slam, Diablo's Server Slam is feeling fine. I've got a hypothesis. Because everyone's playing Tears of the Kingdom. Okay, or a lot of people are playing Tears of the Kingdom. Server Slam, over the weekend that Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom is coming out, I'm going to say that a significant less amount of people, which is not a coherent sentence, is going to be playing Diablo 4 over that weekend. I'm sorry. I didn't play an ounce of it. All right, and there's a lot of people out there that wouldn't have played too. If they did this the week after, it would have been much better for their Server Slam. They would have been able to actually get data that they needed. Not to say that people aren't playing Diablo. Of course there is. There's heaps of people playing Diablo's Server Slam. But nowhere near as much, in my personal opinion, that would have been playing if you didn't, you know, do it on the very day that Zelda Tears of the Kingdom comes out. Pretty much the game that people are expecting to be the game of the generation for Switch. You know? So I'm very excited for Diablo. I definitely want to review that when that comes out. I'm going to be playing it ASAP, of course, when it comes out, and I'll do a review as soon as I can. I'll probably just do a 30 hours in review, maybe end of campaign review, then I'll maybe do an end game review if I continue to play it. Now, I don't know much about this, but I've seen this going around. Cleopatra, 1% audience score and 13% tomato meter. Holy shit. I saw some rumblings on Twitter about this, but oh my god, I don't think I've ever, in the history, ever, of Rotten Tomatoes seen a user score like that. Ever. Or a review score. That is wild. Maybe I should do a review of that. No, it's a bit saucy, isn't it? A bit saucy. But, interesting. Very interesting to see those kind of review scores. Now, I understand that there's maybe a little bit of like controversy with the Queen Cleopatra thing that they did, but I'm talking purely about the tomato meter, and I'm talking purely about the review score. That's crazy. It's season 1? Is there going to be a season 2? Holy shit. Can they go into like negative numbers? That's what I want to see. Holy shit. No AI game today, guys, because I thought there was going to be so much Zelda stuff that I had to do. I didn't know if I had time. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I love you, appreciate you guys. I always truly appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Hanging out, talking about Zelda, talking about memes, reviews, and discussions. And I look forward to the next time. All right, guys, have a wonderful day, evening, wherever you are. Laymen out.